Hello and welcome to episode 1 of the Zeldudes Podcast. We figured there weren't enough dudes with podcasts, so here's ours, where we talk about anything and everything happening in Hyrule. I'm Ed, known online as Zeltic, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Luke, known as Zelda Master.
Hey everybody.
And today, as it's our first episode, we're going to cover our own stories with the Legend of Zelda, our first Zelda game, what these games mean to us, and where we hope to see the series go in the future. So let's start off with you, Luke. What introduced you to Zelda? What was your first game?
Okay, so the first Zelda game I've ever played was Ocarina of Time, and I want to say 4 or 5 years old. I was pretty young. I was so afraid of the game that once I reached the point where you saw the redeads, I would like hide the game and wouldn't play it, and I didn't play it for a couple of years after that. So while I was introduced to it at a really young age, it took me a while to actually beat the game. But what got me into it was actually my mom. She had like the guide for it, and I would watch her 100% the game. And from there on, Zelda became a huge part of my life. And I've just became obsessed with it because it was like the one game I, looked into actually beating and completing 100%. And to me, that's like what a full game should be. And it was just so magical, watching her play it and everything. So that's kind of like what introduced me to the series. And then, I went from Majora's Mask to Wind Waker and just like literally thereon. Eventually I revisited the older Zelda games as I got older. But it really started with Ocarina of Time. What about you?
I'm pretty much the same, even down to the being scared of it. So it was Ocarina of Time for me. So I'm 26, so I'm a year older than Ocarina of Time.
Yep.
So I don't remember it coming out or anything like that. But my parents had a Nintendo 64 when I was a kid, when I was a baby, pretty much. They used to leave me at a cot. They might not like me telling the story, but they used to leave me in a cot in the corner of the room and just play Mario 64 for hours on end. And I think that's why the music is so kind of deeply ingrained, like in my subconscious. I think because I was listening to it when I was, a little baby. So they had a Nintendo 64, and Ocarina of Time was obviously one of the games they had on it. And then, my earliest memories of gaming are playing Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo 64. But yeah, I couldn't get far either. I got to Dodongo's Cavern on my first ever run through. And you walk into Dodongo's Cavern and there's that giant skull staring at you.
Yeah.
And the music of that dungeon is just so creepy. I still find it creepy now, but I couldn't get past that. I didn't like the Stal children in Hyrule Field.
True. Nighttime was just like anxiety time. I hated nighttime, especially only as Young Link. It's like with Adult Link, I was okay in the night, but like as Young Link, it's like why?
Yeah, exactly. And it always feels like night lasts way longer than day does, even though that's not how it works.
They last 60 seconds each or something.
Yeah, exactly. But when you're a kid and you're being chased around by Stal children, it kind of feels a lot longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I couldn't get past Dodongo's Cavern as a kid. So while Ocarina was my first Zelda game, and like one of the first games I ever played, I'd spent a lot more time on Mario 64 and everything. And it wasn't actually till Wind Waker that I kind of fell in love with Zelda. And that's my first Zelda game in terms of it is the first one that I sat down and completed it. Just because it's a lot more accessible, I think, to a little kid. At least it was to me. It wasn't as scary.
Yeah.
Although the redeads in that aren't particularly nice, but
they're worse.
Yeah,
but they don't look as threatening.
Yeah, but the noise, their scream,
and the way they clutch
so much worse.
Link, so scary.
Yeah.
Though that's funny, cause I think because I am like a few years older than you. When Wind Waker came out, I hated it actually, because I'm like, oh, this looks too kiddie. By then, I had already, played Majora's Mask. I've seen the worst it can get. So I was expecting dark things with the series moving forward, and then they released the Wind Waker, which is like the complete opposite of Majora's Mask.
That's interesting. So you fell into that, because I was too young to Like, I don't remember the build up to Wind Waker's release at all, so I was not part of any of the kind of outrage about that.
Yeah.
But I always kind of, it must be quite similar to Star Wars with there's something called the Ewok line, and I don't know whether that's just something from How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah.
But people think that if you were born before Return of the Jedi, or if you were a kid when you watched Return of the Jedi, you'd love Ewoks because obviously they're little teddy bears. But if you were older when you went in and saw that film, you hated them. And I can't remember where the line is, but there's something called the Ewok line.
Yeah. That's past our
and
time.
I wonder if it's
both
true.
Of ours.
That's yeah.
Wonder if there's maybe a Wind Waker line, like, but no.
Exactly. I wonder when it is, because you're clearly one side of it and I'm the other. Because I don't even remember kind of reacting to the Wind Waker looking different. It was just kind of another
You couldn't
game.
think that deep. You were too young to like really compare art styles and all of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I was still pretty young, like still less than 10 years old, but for some reason, I guess the edgy mindset, maybe Shadow the Hedgehog, Sonic also, like, look, I want it dark, I want it deep. And
then I suppose by the time I got to that age, the kind of like, edgy 10-year-old or whatever, Twilight Princess was out. So that was 2006. So I was like 9 when that came out.
I think I was 12 or something.
Yeah. So I think the Zelda series kind of it synced up quite well with my edginess. And Wind Waker's kind of pre all that. So I was fine with it. And I just remember that's kind of where all my formative memories of Zelda come from, is playing Wind Waker.
Yeah.
Because me and my brothers just used to sit down and it wasn't even about beating the game. It wasn't you sit down and you progress through the story and do all the dungeons. It was because I think a game like the Wind Waker to a little kid, so a 6-year-old or whatever, is such a massive game. As in, it takes multiple play sessions by massive game. It's not like Mario Kart where you sit down, you play.
Even for an adult,
a Grand Prix or whatever. Even for an
adult, it's not. Of course.
Yeah. But we just used to kind of sit down and just kind of sail around and kind of treat it a bit like GTA or like Just Cause or something. It was just kind of like a world we like.
Yeah.
You just went on and messed around and Wind Waker.
A lot more lighthearted. You're not beating up people on the street and going.
yeah, exactly.
Gunning people down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're just like beating up the pigs on Windfall Island and getting terrified by them. But yeah, I remember we just used to kind of sail around and we did this thing where we'd find random islands and we'd like claim that island because I've got a lot of brothers, so it's quite a competitive family. So like I'd find an island in the Wind Waker and I'd be like, this is my island. And then when they played the game on their save, I was like, no, you can't go to my island. That's I've claimed that. That's where I live.
Yeah.
And then because I'm the eldest, I obviously got the furthest in the Wind Waker. And I got to the point where I could enter the cabana. They couldn't. My little brothers couldn't on their save file. So they obviously get to the door and they get stuck. They can't get past the butler painted on the door. And I just told them, it's because it's my island. I've claimed it, so you can't go in my house. And then I went on my save file and went in the house, and they couldn't believe it. It's
like rubbing it in their face.
I've done something impossible. Exactly. Yeah.
That is kind of funny because I remember with Majora's Mask, speaking of like brothers, like it only had 2 save files. So I come from 4. I have 4 brothers, so we're like a total of 5 when I was young. All growing up together, and literally there was only 2 files for Majora's Mask, so we had to share that to the point where like I shared it with my oldest brother, but I would just let him carry me. So like I'll be honest, I didn't really beat Majora's Mask for the first time by myself. I even had him help me. And I remember getting the Fierce Deity's Mask, and literally, like, it was probably the best thing, like, the best unlockable you can imagine in a Zelda game. But I remember, it's so weird, because as a kid, it was before the age of the internet. before, you know, you could spread rumors and everything. I remember my uncle would lie to us and say, oh, the Master Sword's in the game. You can get the Master Sword. And it's like, where? He's like, Death Mountain's in the game. You just got to go there. I remember looking at the mountain in the swamps. You know, it kind of looks like, as a kid.
Oh, it's got the kind of ring of clouds.
Yeah. I remember like, I just kept envisioning it and thinking, oh, where and how to find it. It's like, but I couldn't prove him wrong because like the lack of content on the internet, or like, you know, lack of access. You know, right now everyone has a phone or like an iPad or something. They can easily access it. But yeah, back then you couldn't. And I mean, to me, it kind of fueled the theories and imaginations a lot more than it is now, because now you're a Google search away from confirming if it's real or not. But I remember I would just waste time, like every single day, just looking for it, trying to figure it out, going nowhere because it doesn't exist. But yeah, I get real nostalgic.
Do you remember any of the kind of Triforce rumors or anything like that from Ocarina of Time?
Like the hidden room with the Triforce? I remember there was something like that as well. Yeah, because I feel like some friends at school would mention something like that, but I never took it too seriously. It was mainly because like my uncle, you know, I look up to him and all. He's just straight up lying to my face.
He's abusing his position of trust there.
Yeah. But it is crazy because, we look at the Wind Waker, like at least I looked at the Wind Waker as a bad thing. A lot of people did because, I mean, I wasn't old enough to understand the negativity, but we can look back at it and see that when they did first show it, a lot of people did get upset. It was a huge, like, part of the fan base that didn't like the art style. But you look at the game now and it is the most timeless Zelda game. It has aged the best out of any Zelda game, if we're not, you know, talking about the two recent ones, and easily looks the best hands down because of that art style. And I feel like it was a great thing that Nintendo went there, even if it was negative at the time, and even if it forced him to make Twilight Princess to counteract all of that negative reception. Like, thank God it exists, because it's a gem now. It truly is one of like the best looking Zelda games to date because of that reason.
It's not an unpopular opinion anymore that the Wind Waker it looks better than Twilight Princess. It looks better than Skyward Sword.
Twilight Princess is probably the worst looking Zelda game, even though I love it to death, but because like every NPC outside of Link,
it's quite muddy.
The mud. Well, it was during that era of like every game was gray and brown. You know, that was like the era of like trying to slowly, you know, transition to HD. Yeah, granted, Nintendo was a bit late on the HD transition, but that transition to HD, every game has this weird gray filter and really brown because they're all trying to do the realistic textures, but they just don't look good. And they all aged horribly. But you look at the Wind Waker, and it's like that cell shaded, bright, vibrant style can hold up till today because they went there. And it's genius, because I'm glad Nintendo kind of realized that again and came back to it with both Skyward Sword. Skyward Sword has more of a Wind Waker-esque vibe, but it borrows the Twilight Princess character models. And then Breath of the Wild, they just nailed it. Like, we're gonna make Studio Ghibli in real life. We're gonna have like anime, but in that cell shaded, 3D art. So it's so good. Like, I love Breath.
It's perfect. It's like how the Wind Waker doesn't age. Like, it still looks as good now as it did when it
Breath
came
of the
out.
Wild will look great 10, 20 years.
Breath of the Wild would look great
from now.
And also it's releasing on underpowered hardware. Tears of the Kingdom came out this year on the Switch, which was underpowered in 2017 when it launched, and yet it still looks amazing. It's still kind of, it can compete with how good AAA games look, just because cell shaded art styles, they just look great. And I think Nintendo, they've mastered it now with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. 100%. So I think when Skyward Sword came out, I thought that was kind of the perfect look for Zelda, because it was it had that kind of painterly look. Objects in the distance kind of looked a bit like an oil painting. Which helped mask some of how the Wii was struggling a bit. But the character designs as well, they're kind of a little bit cartoonish, but not quite as bobble-headed as the Wind Waker. And then Breath of the Wild is just,
it's like they were finding their place with Skyward Sword, and then they finally solidified it with Breath of the Wild. I couldn't kind of agree there. And it was giving like a literally like something that people who wanted a more realistic look, with Twilight Princess, but still make it timeless, not have to make it too realistic in that sense. It's usually the best of both worlds when you look at from Wind Waker to Twilight Princess. If you're someone who wants something in between, Skyward Sword is the way to go. But it is a shame it wasn't actually in HD when it first came out, because when they first showed it to us, I remember vividly, because that's when I first got into YouTube and wanting to cover Zelda games. It was around Skyward Sword's release. And I remember like they showed us HD screenshots and I think the first trailer was HD, or like one of the presentations was like an actual high definition. It looks exactly like Skyward Sword HD, the actual re-release. But then they just downscaled it to make it run on Wii U, or rather Wii. And it was a shame, but at least we ended up getting it. Like, thankfully, we got the HD version. Sadly, it didn't remedy the motion controls, but that's another tangent.
Yeah, we'll save that one for another day. I think motion controls is kind of a Pandora's box that we'll wait to open that one.
Yeah.
But I think I've kind of spoiled my answer now by gushing about the Wind Waker so much. But what's your favorite Zelda game then?
Okay, yeah. So my favorite has to be it's torn, because like if I had to pick, obviously usually the newest game, at least during that novelty period, it will always be my favorite. So when I think of it, Tears of the Kingdom is like the best Zelda game, off the top of my head. But if I really were to think like a year or two down the road, what I'm gonna come back to, what I'm gonna feel nostalgic for, what I'm gonna like feel like still really holds true, it would have to be Twilight Princess. It's a marriage between Twilight Princess and Majora's Mask, the two darkest Zelda games, I'd say aesthetically and story-wise. But yeah, probably Twilight Princess, because mainly because it actually got me into YouTube. I remember when it first came out. I sadly actually didn't play it when it first came out. I was in Egypt, so I remember hearing about it. Yeah. And then I came back from Egypt, and that's the first thing I wanted to get on, because in Egypt I was stuck with Wind Waker, and don't get me wrong, it was amazing, and that's when I found my true love for the game. And I remember beating it, and I had Minish Cap and all the other like Zelda games prior to Twilight Princess, and I was absolutely in love with all of them, and whatever my dad could bring back, but he never brought back Twilight Princess. I don't think he knew enough about it. But when I did come back, I remember getting it for my birthday around like 14, 15 years old, and I would play it nonstop. I had like a CRT in my room, and I would just like boot it up every day and just play it from day to night. And I beat it multiple times. I remember telling like my friends and my siblings about it, and they were like, that's crazy, like you're literally like a Zelda master, and that's essentially where the username came from. Yeah, so I'm like, you're right, I could show people how to beat it because I'm so good at it, and I thought that was like needed. And funny, around that time during YouTube, that was something that was really popular, so I kind of found my place, and that essentially is what got me into YouTube. So I feel like outside of it just holding a lot of nostalgia, just it having that kind of value and getting me into what I do today, makes it so special to me.
Twilight Princess. Yeah. So you were aware of Twilight Princess when you were living in Egypt?
But like
you knew it was out, or was it coming out at the time? Or
subtle things, like I knew there was a new Zelda game. I wasn't 100% sure if it was out or not, but I knew it was like the darkest Zelda game. That's what they kept saying, like, oh, it makes Wind Waker look like nothing, this and that. Again, our internet was even more limited then, but from the little bit of rumors I heard, I knew it was the next best thing. And either way, by then I had like Zelda and Sonic were like the two goats. Like that was my thing. Sonic, it died out.
Oh, really? Older. Sonic as well?
No, I was all, but this is not a Sonic podcast, but I was all about Sonic. I played all the games up until this day, even like down to Frontiers, but no, they don't hold as well. Zelda gets better and better with each iteration. Sadly, Sonic doesn't, but let's not get into that. But so you said for you it's the Wind Waker, right? Like it's still so. Because it was your first true game you played, or do you think it holds up better than most Zelda games?
I mean, I genuinely think it is the best Zelda game, but I do understand that that's probably coming from like a massive childhood bias I have for it. I think most people's first Zelda games, or like first proper Zelda games, are usually their favorite. But I mean, I know that I probably only think it's my favorite because of that, but genuinely it is just so solid. It's we've talked about how good it looks, but it feels really good to play. Going back now to the N64 Zeldas, you can tell they were still finding their feet with 3D. Like Link, it's a little bit clunky to control in places, and then you move to the Wind Waker, and it's just so smooth.
Oh, so fluid. Yeah, that's true.
It's great, and the story's incredible. It's the reason I first got interested in Zelda lore was the opening of the Wind Waker. It's why I used the legendary hero theme in my YouTube intro. Is you open up the game for the first time and you get that whole beautiful intro cutscene explaining this distant legend of a kind of a forgotten kingdom, and no one really remembers it, but the legend survives on the wind's breath. And then as you play the game, you kind of uncover the truth of this lost kingdom at the bottom of the sea, and it's just such a great package overall.
That's true. And it's really ambitious when you think about it. It was the first true open world Zelda game until Breath of the Wild. Like, it was the one Zelda game that had 0 loading screens throughout its entire overworld, and you don't really think of that. Like, because it's covered in blue sea, you're just like, you kind of forget that it's really as massive as it is, but it is so huge. It's crazy how Nintendo got that to run back then, and it's amazing. And
I think that's the main reason why I was saying me and my brothers used to play it a bit like it was GTA, because it was probably the first open world, open world, whatever we class as open world, is probably the first open world game that I played. I can't think of anything that would have come before it.
Same.
And that was just amazing. It was, me and my brothers played it so much casually just because it was like a little world that you could turn on. I think just everything about the game is incredible, and it's only got better the more I've played it. Because some games, they're incredible the first time around, but then when there's no more surprises left, it kind of takes the novelty out of it a bit. But the Wind Waker, I've kind of found the opposite. Like, I know the game inside out, but that kind of only makes me appreciate it more. And I'm sure you're the same with Twilight Princess. That like, the more you learn, the more you love it. If you know what I mean.
But definitely looking back at it, I can see how it aged. Like, it aged pretty badly compared to the Wind Waker. Not just aesthetically, but like, I didn't realize how simple the overworld was. Like, there's just like hallways, like tunnel, like like corridors to big open areas, and it's just kind of all connected. So it's like the world is super limiting compared to like Breath of the Wild or even the Wind Waker. But again, the Wind Waker you can't.
Yeah, when you're coming off the Wind Waker into Twilight Princess, it's quite restrictive. Like, I still love that the world of Twilight Princess is amazing. It's like there's loads of depth and loads of character to it. But I think it was recently that AJ Aonuma was saying past Zelda overworlds, they basically designed them like dungeons without a roof, I think he said, which makes sense if you think of Ocarina of Time's Hyrule Field or Twilight Princess's Hyrule Field, and they're kind of lots of interconnected areas. Like you were saying, there's kind of corridors in Twilight Princess a lot, but the Wind Waker didn't have that. I know it is basically a big loading zone in the Great Sea and whatever, but I think that the illusion of an open world was definitely
100%
alive in Wind Waker more than anything else.
Yep. And especially if it's your first run, you're just like, wow, I can go anywhere. Once the what's it called, the
Ballad of Gales.
No. Yeah, not even the Ballad of Gales. Once the lion lets you, what's his name? The King of Red Lions. Like, for some reason, because he would deny you early on until I think reach Tetra's.
So Link, we need to go this way.
Yeah. Until you reach like Tetra's pirate ship, and then it kind of like opens up. Like the second time you meet him or something. Okay, so we talked about our favorite Zelda games. What's your least favorite then?
I mean, it's kind of a cop-out answer, and I'm sure you'll probably agree. No, it's not. I actually quite like Zelda 2.
Okay.
I do like that game. No, for me, Triforce Heroes is just.
Whoa, okay, I'm offended actually.
Really.
Yeah,
I mean, it's okay. It's a fun game. It's just not what I want from Zelda. It's not. I'm not a fan of Four Swords or Four Swords Adventures either. I'm not a multiplayer Zelda guy. I mean, my opinion could change because I haven't properly played Triforce Heroes in a few years now.
Have you beaten it? Because you said you told me once you beaten it by yourself only, right?
Yeah, I've played multiplayer with friends, but never the whole way through.
That's why then if you can get people to commit with you, it is a blast.
Yeah, that it probably does hurt my opinion of it a lot. That the furthest I've ever got in multiplayer wasn't even with friends. It was with randoms online, which is just horrendous.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm sure my opinion, could be swayed if I played that again. But I don't know. I think it's multiplayer Zelda is something I'm not a fan of, and also I'm a big story guy with Zelda. I like to kind of get immersed in the world. Like I said,
dumb. She lost her style, the princess, and you need to get it back. Yeah, true.
And you need to find her the perfect outfit or whatever, and it just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah. I kind of like the simple, cutesy story and everything. There's something about it, but I do agree.
Yeah.
If you don't have the right group of people, like if you were telling me this single player, if Triforce Heroes was only single player, I would say it's really bad, even gameplay wise, because I hate that you have to control them with their statues and the whole totem thing, and it gets really annoying when you can only swap between one Link and you can't have the other two be controlled by AI and follow you. So that does raise a pretty big problem with the game. So I can agree with you there.
And I think I'm a little bit biased against it as well, because I remember when it was announced. I think it would it have been E3 2015. I think when that was announced.
Probably.
And I'm pretty sure that was right after they said that Breath of the Wild, or Zelda Wii U as it was then, was going to be delayed, and also that they weren't going to show it at E3. I remember that.
So that being the placeholder, and then, it took that frustration you had.
Yeah, and I remember I deliberately didn't watch that E3 at the time because I had an exam the next day. So I was like, I'm not even going to touch E3 at all. I'm going to revise for my exam, do my exam, then come home and watch it. And I remember I was in my room, studying chemistry or whatever, and one of my brothers walked past my bedroom talking to another brother, and he said, "Oh yeah, they're showing off the new Zelda game." And I was like, oh my god, they've pulled a switcheroo, and they actually are showing
Zelda Wii U.
So
your expectations were beyond the roof.
Yeah.
To be like,
so I went and I did the exam and everything, got home, turned up, watched E3, Triforce Heroes.
Yeah. Okay, I can understand that, yeah.
So, I mean, it got off to a bad start with me, but yeah, I don't know. I'll have to properly replay it with not online randoms as my teammates.
Exactly, and you have to do it soon because Nintendo's closing the 3D.
Oh yeah,
or 3DS
we've got a
Wii
clock
U.
now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sadly.
So for now, I'll go with Triforce Heroes. What about you? What's your least favorite?
So I already spoiled it earlier. It's Zelda 2.
Oh, sorry. Of course you did. Yeah, Zelda 2. Tell me why then, because I actually really like Zelda 2.
Okay, so I love the idea of this kind of is almost like, I wouldn't say Castlevania. It kind of reminds me of Castlevania in a sense.
It is. Yeah.
It has that kind of aesthetic, but then with the open world, like a Final Fantasy game or a JRPG in that sense. But the controls are, I guess if you love Castlevania and you're okay with the clunky controls, you'd be fine with it. But I'm someone who never really even got into the Castlevania series because, at least the older games, because it's very clunky and stiff and hard. And I feel like that was the main issue with Zelda 2. I love the idea, but it just seems way too limiting. And the fact that characters can only say 5 words at a time, and the story is just super bare minimum. And I feel like even Zelda 1 holds up better, even though they leave you in the dark as well. You grab your sword and do your thing. But something about Zelda 2, especially when I was younger, every time, when I convinced myself I love this series, I have to love every single game, I could just never get into Zelda 2. I'd boot it up. I'd get to Raru Town, or I don't remember, what was it, the first town? I already forgot the name. But I would get to the first town and just forget, not know what to do, get lost. It was just too too restricting in that sense, and then leveling up wasn't really like I like the idea of leveling up, but it just something about it never gripped me, and that's like saying, well, it is my least favorite Zelda game. I don't think it's the worst game of its time around that time. I still think it holds up, but for a Zelda game, I don't think it's that good. So I feel like every other Zelda game is better.
I do actually agree with you on a lot of that, and I felt the same for the longest time. It wasn't until it was after I started my YouTube channel. Maybe it would have been 2016, maybe early 2017. I'm not sure, but yeah, I'd never beat it, because anytime I tried to beat it before, I just I bounced off it because it is so hard, and the controls are really clunky, like you said.
Yep.
But I kind of had this epiphany with it, where I sat down. I was like, I don't know. I kind of got annoyed that the game was beating me, and I really had to grind it. It is tough, and I was so terrible for so long. I'm still not the best Zelda 2 player by any means, but I think it's just very, very rewarding getting through that game. It is like a proper challenge, and I think once you get into it, the clunky controls.
I'm sure. Yeah, you'll get used to it.
They start
it's like
to feel.
any game.
The combat does start to click. You have to adjust the height of your shield, whether you're holding it up or you're doing a crouch shield. Then you start doing all sorts of jump attacks as well. There's a lot more to the combat than there is most Zelda games. I think it's one of the most. I don't know the word. Link has the most moves. I don't know.
I think he had like the
you can
downward
think of a better way to
strike.
say that.
He had like the downward strike as well. He had like a huge array of different attacks, and it was really cool because I think it introduced Dark Link as well. Like the game is very special, and there's a lot of things that have the series has reused from that game alone. But yeah, it's sad. I hope we get I want a remake of it. If we were to get a remake of that, they would make it a lot less clunky, or at least visually more appealing, and maybe that would entice me to keep playing it or something. So I would love a remake for it.
I think a remake with some kind of quality of life improvements would be great. Like, not respawning all the way back at the start
and actually slashing, and not just like thrusting your sword forward.
The little poke.
Stab.
Yeah. I think that is a game that would lend itself well to a remake. I think I could imagine. I mean, I think it would need a lot of bringing up to date in certain aspects. Same with Zelda 1 if they did a remake. They'd probably have to do some things like. I imagine if they remade that game now, they'd do things like signpost some of the bombable walls,
or just put cracks. If the graphics is
good enough. Exactly. I was
like thinking of like if visually
they
update it. That visually updating Zelda 1 would probably fix most of its issues, like straight up. That's all it really does.
Exactly, because finding some of the secrets in that game, or not even some of the secrets, finding some of the dungeons and stuff is quite difficult.
Yeah, the last dungeon, I believe the last dungeon is the one near the two rocks, right? The twin rock one, right? And you
Spectacle Rock.
Spectacle Rock.
Yeah. And the only thing you've really got to go off for most of the game is kind of terribly translated clues. Like Eastern Peninsula is the key. Tenth enemy has the bomb, and weird things like that. It's Zelda 2. I mean, it is so different to any other Zelda game that kind of like how I don't like Triforce Heroes just because it's not what I play Zelda for. It's not really a Zelda game in my book, and Link's Awakening is so different that I could see it being the bottom of someone's list. But yeah, we've done favorite and least favorite Zelda game. What about spin-offs? What would you say your favorite Zelda spin-off is?
Easily Hyrule Warriors, because that is I would say the original, so the definitive edition, the re-release, or if you get all the DLC on the Wii U. But yeah, that to me is like the Zelda Mario Party, if that makes any sense. It's the mashup of all games and
all stars.
All stars. Yeah, it's so good for that reason. It feels like a love letter, and you can really tell, like Koei Tecmo, who helped develop it, they make all the Musou games, which is the Warrior games. They definitely put a lot of passion into those games. Like
you can tell they're fans of the series.
Exactly, you can tell they're fans of the series. Even though the story like is a bit weak, and the whole Sia drama, but it introduced Linkle, even though that was technically in the like I said, it's as DLC. It also it was just really good. Like, and all the characters that they brought back from the series were represented well, and the whole time travel thing, I thought it was really good. Obviously, it's not canon, but a lot of people were looking at it as like, oh, this might, solve the Zelda timeline as a whole.
This explains the timeline.
No, that's bull crap. But still, for what it is, the fact that it can be like people can assume that and theorize that, which means it really holds well for even a story on its own. And then on top of it, being able to revisit all these worlds. But in a Musou style hack and slash, it's just it's so good. Like, I want another Hyrule Warriors. I don't mind. Don't get me wrong. I don't think Age of Calamity is any bad. But it was just too focused on literally the Age of Calamity, and it wasn't.
I think we need to dedicate a proper conversation to Age of Calamity at some point. But I completely agree with Hyrule Warriors.
Tears is the same, right?
I think I'd say that is my favorite, as in it's the best one. And if someone said, you've got to play a Zelda spin-off right now, I'd go Hyrule Warriors on the Wii U, definitely. I think compared to Age of Calamity, Age of Calamity has, I know some people don't like it. It does have a story that is interesting, right? It's got its problems, and I think the main problem with Age of Calamity was the way the game was marketed. I think we didn't expect this kind of
they
alternate timeline, happy ending thing. Yeah. So I think that aside, I think the story is fine for a Zelda spin-off. I think it's
really, you don't think Terraco was overshined? I thought it was ridiculous. Like, they made their one original character like the star of the entire game, and to me that felt insulting to Link. Like, screw this little guardian, he's not cute, he's not okay. You know what, let me not get too into it, but I personally did
we'll save this for another time then, because I think I would defend some of Age of Calamity's story. Not all of it, but I think I'd be willing to defend some of that. But regardless of that, the actual gameplay of Hyrule Warriors, of Age of Calamity, is nowhere near as good as the original Hyrule Warriors.
Yep, because the weapon difference.
I think it's just less fun to play, and that's all there is to it. I don't know. I think if I had to choose a favorite spin-off for kind of more personal or nostalgic reasons, it would be Link's crossbow training.
Oh, nice.
Just because I had that on the Wii, and I played it so much. I loved that game.
Yeah, I agree in the sense of, like, I don't think the gameplay's that good because it just feels like a shooter gallery, but
it's like an arcade game.
Yeah,
sort of
but it's very special to me in the sense of, like, this is the second Twilight Princess. This is the closest thing we got to Twilight Princess.
Oh, of course. Yeah. But I used to play that game so much. So I think I'd choose that for personal reasons. But Hyrule Warriors is definitely a better game.
Yeah, like the best spin-off in terms of content and just like replayability. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Cadence of Hyrule?
I'll be honest, I never even got through half the game, probably. Like, I could never commit to it. I'm not a rhythm person, and I think that is the biggest issue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I suck at it. And I know I probably just need to sit down and get good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I am not good. And I might be misremembering, but I'm pretty sure it released during E3 2019.
It did. It was like overshadowed. So it's
basically straight after the Tears of the Kingdom
trailer
announcement.
Yeah.
Yep. So I was doing that. I was full Tears of the Kingdom mode or Breath of the Wild 2 mode. So I think I played it a little bit, kind of bounced off it. But again, that's another one where you can tell that the people who made it are clearly Zelda fans.
Oh, 100%, especially the music.
I haven't beat it myself. Yeah, the music's amazing.
Yeah, like the
I haven't beaten it
myself,
but I've seen. Yeah.
You know how when you press pause, you hear the vocals of the Ocarina of Time intro.
Yes. Exactly.
Oh, so magical.
You can tell they're Zelda guys.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, I think I should give it another go at some point because I haven't played that.
Same. I feel like it deserves more
fully.
love to like encourage Nintendo to let indie companies and just third party people be able to develop Zelda games, because the more the merrier. Like, I don't think if it's a new Zelda game, it's not going to ruin the franchise. Just give us more of it,
Exactly. Yeah.
Actually, speaking,
Right.
to follow up that kind of question, we can add to that. What company would you want to actually make a Zelda game? Like, what third party company that isn't Nintendo in house? What would you want to see? Who would you want to see develop? For me, it'd be Monolith Soft. Easily, they already helped develop Zelda.
I mean, they did Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, they already helped. But imagine them actually have full control.
If they had the reins. Yeah.
Have you played Xenoblade?
I played the first one.
Okay, well that's
when it re-released, but I never played X, never played 2.
The first one's my favorite.
There's three's out now, isn't it? Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah, three's been out for a year. The first one in my eyes is still the best, and I feel like it's the closest to what a Zelda game could be, or like if they made something like it. Especially following Shulk, and he reminds me of Link. He has always reminded me of Link. He just, it's like if Link had a voice. Good thing Link doesn't have a voice. I don't want to hear I'm really feeling it. We both said at the same time. Yeah, I don't want to hear Link go that. But if they were to make a game, it'd be so good, because one thing that we both and I'm sure many Zelda fans can agree with, is Nintendo leaves a lot of things ambiguous. They don't like to really explain things, and that's something Monolith Soft loves to overdo. Their games are like an anime with an RPG wrapped in one. You're getting as many cutscenes as you are getting gameplay time, and to me that's something really nice. Yeah, I wouldn't want it to be that heavy on story, but they would cover everything that needs to be covered, and to me that would be perfect. I would love to see a Zelda game with deep story, and they have those plot twists and moments where you're just on the edge of your seat, and I want a Zelda game with that level of storytelling. So for me, 1000% Monolith Soft. They're already one of my favorite game developers of all time. So yeah. What about you?
I could agree with that, and it's not impossible as well because of how closely they work together.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, this is far less likely, but I'd love to see a FromSoft Zelda.
Oh my god, true. I didn't even think of that. Wow, yeah.
Because a lot of people said, and I agree to some extent, that Dark Souls is kind of adult Zelda.
Yep.
Elden Ring's one of my favorite games of all time.
Same.
I love that it Breath of the Wild-ified Dark
the Dark Souls series, gave it a open world.
Exactly.
And things to do.
And playing that, the whole time I was just thinking, imagine a Zelda by these people.
Right, their imagination is so disturbing and, dark. It's imagine them taking Zelda characters and enemies and giving it that coat of paint. Yeah, wow. Yeah, that'd be so cool.
And then with a Zelda with kind of intricate combat like that. And
true.
Like you were saying about...
Sorry,
go on.
I was going to say, because the combat is already reminiscent of Zelda. I'm pretty sure Zelda inspired most 3D game combat with the Z targeting,
the locking.
Locking on. I say Z targeting because it's N64, but locking on and that whole 3D
Well,
space.
I'd say Z targeting because I'm across the pond.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you were saying about the lore with Xenoblade, I think the way FromSoft and Miyazaki tells his stories, that would lend itself well to Zelda lore, which is never particularly explicit. It's always you've kind of got to fill in the gaps for yourself, and they leave little bits, but let the player's imagination fill in the rest. And that's how Dark Souls lore works. So it's all item descriptions, or kind of a statue in a certain temple somewhere would mean this, and I'd love to see them.
That would be
Zelda.
that'd be so fun to decipher, because Nintendo doesn't give us that level of in-depth lore that FromSoft would remedy it 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I love I'm sure we'll talk about this game in excruciating detail at some point, but the final battle of Tears of the Kingdom, the Ganondorf showdown, it felt like Dark Souls to me in that it was a kind of a one-on-one, like mano-a-mano duel, like which we haven't really got since
Twilight Princess,
Skyward Sword,
or I guess Skyward Sword
and Twilight Princess,
True, Skyward. I guess I don't consider the motion controls to be it, because it feels more like playing a mini game. Even with Demise, it didn't really feel like it was really one-on-one. I'd say like for me, the closest thing was like the Ganondorf battle in Twilight Princess. That truly had that like vibe, but the Demise one, it was just literally play a mini game. Wait for the opportunity, quickly hit, and then it can go by within an instance. But I guess to each their own.
Yeah, I wonder if it's because I think this is another thing we disagree on. Then I wonder if it's another thing that your extra couple of years, maybe I was just young enough when Skyward Sword came out, so I would have been, when was it, 2011, so I'd have been 14, 13, 14, something like that. I wonder if I was just young enough that the motion controls just kind of worked for me, because I don't know, I really liked them when I played Skyward Sword for the first time. I still like motion controls in the game now.
It could be the
there's
old
bits that I don't like,
of mine. Yeah, it could be like I just don't want to adapt to something new. It could have been that. Yeah. Kind of a lot of people. There's two camps, and it's always been one of Skyward Sword's most controversial topics of the motion controls ruin it. It's like it does nothing, and I can see both sides, and I do agree Skyward Sword has worse flaws than its motion controls. The motion controls can be pretty good at times, but I guess I could never truly feel like it's an actual Zelda game because of it, because I always felt like I was playing some kind of Wii Sports thing. It always kind of put that barrier, and I could never get into it.
I think especially because of how linear the game is, it like feels basically on rails at some point.
100%, easily the most.
It feels
Zelda game.
Yeah, it feels exactly like that Wii Sports Resort sword fighting challenge.
Actually,
you move down a path and there's a million enemies coming at you, and that's kind of how Skyward Sword feels a lot of the time. But I don't know. I've always just kind of got in the mindset of that, and just kind of learned to like it. I don't know.
Yeah.
At least I think the motion controls were definitely better than the non-motion controls on Switch. I really, really didn't like those.
True.
So we've got your favorite Zelda game. What's your favorite incarnation of Link and Zelda, the characters?
Okay, for me, it would have to be, I feel like you might agree with me, maybe. I know a lot of people would, but it would have to be Ocarina of Time Link, 1000%, because he has the most rich story. He becomes the hero shade. It's, you see him from a kid to an adult. You see all sides of him. It's just the OG Link, and it probably nostalgia too. It was the first Zelda game I actually, got into and played. And that Link will just always be the Link. Like, that's Link to me. And I feel like he was represented in most spin-offs, right? He was like the one you see most now. Right now, I feel like Nintendo is kind of orienting to the Twilight Princess Link being the green Link, right? You see that now on their promotional art and everything. And
like the promotional art that's not meant to be one specific Link, kind of a general Link. That's always most similar to Twilight Princess Link than any other.
But before, in early times, it was Ocarina of Time guaranteed. He was featured in Soul Calibur. He was in both Melee and 64 Smash. So to me, that's, and again, becomes the hero shade. Majora's Mask, he's a badass. Being able to see him as young Link and do all those cool kick flips from the beginning of the game, as you're like, progressing to Termina, and there's just something so badass about him. Because you're like, he's been an adult, he's experienced everything there is. Now he can use a hook shot, now he can use a huge sword, he can do everything he couldn't do as a kid. You see that progression. It's like, there's just something special about seeing his progress, and then again seeing him after death, essentially as the hero shade, passing on his knowledge. It's just so magical. In terms of Zelda, though, if I just were to jump to Zelda real quick as well, I would have to say Zelda's not as my opinion won't be as strongly, because she's not really as featured in the game, even though it's called The Legend of Zelda. She's more of the side character compared to Link. But it would easily be I would have to say Spirit Tracks, like as funny as that may sound.
Oh yeah. No, I can see that.
Yeah, because she's like the Alphonse to your Edward, if that makes any sense. If you play, if you watched FMA, yeah, like having her, use her spirit to enter the phantoms and you control them, and the fact that she needs to get back her body and all of that, to me it was so cool. And she was very sassy and kind of over the top, and she wasn't just a goody two shoes princess, like she had personality. I thought she was really special. Yeah, the game isn't as deep as like how other Zelda games portrayed Zelda, but there's something about her, and to me that was always special. It's like, one of my favorite Zelda companions is Zelda, because she was literally my companion. So yeah. What about you?
Yeah. No, I can see that. I can agree with you on Skyward Sword. I'd jumping back to the Hero of Time quickly, because I think I'd be split to choose my favorite incarnation of Link between the Hero of Time, and I'll get to him in a second, but the Hero of the Wilds, Breath of the Wild Link, I think would be up there as well.
Oh, okay.
But the Hero of Time, I think, as you were saying, the fact that you see him grow up is such an important part of his character, and I think Child Link in general is more interesting than adult Link. Not just the Hero of Time. I think in general, Link, a younger Link, I think is more interesting than an older Link.
Yeah, Nintendo has always given us a younger interpretation of Link. They never committed to fully adult Link. Like the most we got was, I'd say, probably Princess, probably the oldest, and he was like 17, like 18,
17, something like that. But even that, I think there's so much is much more courageous for this kind of like 8-year-old or however old the Hero of Time is at the start. A little kid like that going on this, horrendous adventure and facing off against Skulltulas and Dead Hand and things like that.
Yeah.
That's so badass. And Twilight Princess Link and Skyward Sword Link, they start out the adventure as pretty beefy guys.
Big boys.
I think Child Link's just a lot more impressive, and I think he kind of exemplifies courage a little bit more because of that. And the fact that you see him grow up and his whole, I mean, we could talk about Ocarina of Time for ages, but his whole arc of losing his childhood and everything is so interesting. But for the sake of variety, I'll go for Breath of the Wild.
Okay, and why is that?
To be fair, I'll choose Breath of the Wild, Link, and Zelda, because I think I think they are probably.
Oh, okay.
I think so. Yeah. That's probably quite a basic answer nowadays.
I mean, I can understand Zelda, because Zelda truly, she had to go through it all. She lost her mom. She lost all of her friends. She saw her city or her kingdom crumble. I can understand Zelda. Like that Zelda is very special. She's easily probably the most like she has the most depth out of any Zelda. Well-defined Zelda, right? Yeah. But why Link? I feel like that Link, no offense, he just seems kind of like a piece of blank paper. Like he doesn't show much that I don't get any personality. I don't think that's the whole
very
point.
Deadpan.
Yeah, very deadpan, and he's kind of just thrust in the adventure and just does it. What's your reasoning, actually?
Yeah, I think actually it's kind of the reasons you said, that he is the most kind of straight up and down Link, and I like, because with Breath of the Wild Link, you don't get this with any other Link, or I think Breath of the Wild Link is the only one you really get his history. So we know this Link's story from the time he was a little kid, and apparently he was like beating adults when he was like 5 years old or whatever it says. Then he pulled the Master Sword as a kid, and then he had this whole story. We didn't get to see all of that.
That's sad. We didn't get to
but that's one of the things I like about Breath of the Wild's way of storytelling, is that it's a reward for exploring the world. You kind of the more you explore the world, the more little bits you find about its history. And I think the fact that when you play the game, Link is this kind of blank slate, very stoic incarnation of Link. But I think we get to see how that happened with this Link, which usually we don't. So I think we get kind of people talking about what Link was like in the past. We get Zelda's diary about him and why he stays silent. And I don't know. I think
he's just the most well-rounded Link, I guess you could say. Like he's the Link of Links, if that makes any sense. I can see what you're saying. Like he represents that noble hero really well. So I see where you're coming from.
But then Zelda, I mean, you already said it. Breath of the Wild Zelda is fantastic, and obviously Tears of the Kingdom as well. She got a whole extra arc to her story.
She became
there.
the Legend of Zelda in Tears of the Kingdom. So
Exactly.
I agree. I guess now that you say
Which
that,
is
I didn't
awesome.
really think too deep into it. Probably that would be my favorite iteration of Zelda now that you say it, but still, I'm glad I mentioned Spirit Tracks because I feel like that's worth, like that was my favorite up until then.
Definitely. Yeah. Spirit Tracks Zelda is fantastic because I mean, Zelda's kind of Link's always pretty similar because he's deliberately a blank slate. They never really give him too much, but Zelda really varies with how she's handled. Some games, like Spirit Tracks, she's a massive part of the game the whole way through. She feels like a kind of, an actual person, an actual character. And then don't wanna talk smack about your favorite game, but Twilight Princess Zelda.
I agree though. She's like.
Don't know anything about her, yeah.
100%.
And
like Midna is more important. She's the Twilight Princess, not Zelda.
Yeah.
When you play the game,
Exactly.
you think it's talking about Zelda. Nah, it's Midna.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to kind of diss my favorite game, Wind Waker Zelda.
Really, you don't like
sucks.
Tetra? What?
No. Tetra is great, but then as soon as she transforms into Zelda, I just find her so boring, and I don't like the way she loses all her pirate sassiness and everything, and I don't know. I really don't like the transformation into Zelda in that game.
Yeah.
I think it would have been much more interesting if they just kept her as Tetra the whole way, because Tetra is actually a fun, interesting character.
100%.
And when she's in Zelda mode, in the dress and all that, she doesn't really, I don't know, she doesn't show many signs of her personality. She does the little wink and everything, but I don't know. I think Tetra was really interesting, and I think that kind of got lost a bit when she became Zelda.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think overall it would have to be Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom for Zelda.
I feel like it's worth like an honorable mention saying that I guess Ocarina of Time Zelda was special because she was chic. I totally forgot about that, but still, she's when she becomes Zelda, it's kind of like what you said with Tetra to Zelda. It's like she loses all that personality and she becomes a noble princess, and it does ruin it. And you want to see Zelda act that way. You don't want to just see her disguised in that sense.
Exactly, and it goes from Sheik, who's this kind of, badass character. Zelda's forced to go into hiding for 7 years and is trained as a Sheikah, and she's got all her ninja skills that she can disappear by throwing a Deku Nut. Then she becomes Zelda, and she's immediately captured like, the second she transforms. And she's, she's helpless.
Screams,
she's the damsel in distress again.
That's it. Like throughout the battle
Which
or everything.
It's so much less interesting.
And as you guide her through Hyrule Castle, destroying, she's just standing there. What do I do? Like, weren't you Sheik at one point? Throw that Deku Nut. Flash out of it.
Exactly. Yeah. But I think that's something that Wind Waker and Ocarina of Time definitely have in common, is that Zelda is just a lot less interesting than her alter egos. But yeah, I can agree with your picks. So we've done Zelda and Link. Who would you say your favorite race is outside of the Hylians? Outside of Hylians.
I would have to say. See, here's the thing. One part of me wants to say Gerudo because I am Egyptian, and I feel like that. I'm represented in the Zelda series. You probably feel represented with Hylians. They're essentially like British people. Like
British royal family. Yeah.
But so like I feel like that, and in general like. I really like them, but sadly they are a race of just females, so I don't relate entirely with them. I can't get that feeling, and I'm not Ganondorf. I'm not the one evil born into it. So it would be torn between like either the Gerudo or I would have to say the Zora. I've always liked the Zora because I always thought they, like, especially in Majora's Mask, Macau, the band, how they had the Indiegogo's.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool. Yeah. And there's something special about them. Plus, they're like the longest living. So, like, if I had to pick who I would want to be if I was in the Zelda universe, I'd be a Zora. I'm going to outlive everybody except, I guess, the Sheikah. But other than that, I'm good. I got a long 100+ year lifespan, so something about the Zora, and them being, I mean, they don't look the best, but there's something special.
I mean, it depends. It depends if you get lucky or not, because it seems they can be born as any
with
kind
any
of
fish head. Yeah, they could have.
like Dorifan is kind of a whale.
True. But I think that he's the king. He was probably gluttonous and, let himself get
maybe,
that big.
yeah.
That could be it. But if I looked like Macau or Sidon, hell yeah, I'd be pretty happy.
Yeah. What's your favorite iteration of the Zora then? Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, or?
No, I would still say like Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, or They're all not that distinct from each other. It's kind of like the same with the Gorons. They're all kind of the same. Even Gerudo. I'd say the Rito probably have the biggest transition. Wind Waker, they were literally humans with beaks just glued to their mouth. But in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, they became actual bird people. Yeah, I would say just really any Zora. I would say. Like, what about you though? What would be your favorite race out of all of them?
I've always been Team Goron. I think.
Oh, really?
Just in any game, they're just cool. They're just bros. Like,
true.
They're just cool guys. Yeah.
But you eat rocks.
I've always loved them.
You're born from a rock. Like, that's a weird cycle.
Yeah.
Like, what if you're eating your little brother and you don't know it? Like,
That's a risk you've got to take. But I don't know. I think maybe since Ocarina of Time, because like the Gorons in that game and Darunia, he's just he's such a bro. He's just they're just very friendly. You feel at home with the Gorons, and I think they're kind of Hylia's perfect race in a way, because if you look at like the Zelda timeline from end to end, like
they've never
Gorons
done wrong.
Don't really change.
Yeah,
they like with it, maybe Twilight Princess, they had some kind of like volcanic elements, like they're kind of magma on their backs, a few of them, but the Gorons don't really change. I think they're kind of
true.
They had their evolution at the start, and then they're done. They're perfect.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
But yeah, I've always loved the Gorons. Just their their attitude. They're just fun, and I don't really have a reason other than that. I just like them.
I mean, and I agree. Yeah, truly. Yeah, their design has changed the least throughout the series. They've literally just been kind of the same. But then, who would you be your favorite like character in that race, or what race? Like, what character exactly outside of like the main, characters do you like the best, like throughout the series entirely? Is it Daruk
so
or Darunia or something?
I've already said Darunia, but I think. I think, to be fair, Daruk overall is probably my favorite. I've got a soft spot for Darmani from Majora's Mask.
Yeah, it's hard not to feel bad.
I think
for
he's
the guy.
Quite cool.
Yeah,
exactly. Which
he got
I was
killed
saying,
by
Goron's
his
always friendly
own
and
kind. Like,
yeah, I said Goron's always friendly and happy or whatever, and Darmani's quite a big contrast to that, which is quite cool. To be fair, the Gorons in Majora's Mask are in a pretty dire state from the start. But yeah, I think if I had to pick, I'd say Daruk overall. But you can't really go wrong. Most of the main established Goron characters are just cool.
Yeah.
I also do quite like. I'm blanking on his name. Is it Gorko or something? The one from Skyward Sword. The one who hangs around Farron, around.
The researcher, the one who
Seal
digs.
Grounds, and it's like Gorko.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm
like that.
I'm blanking too.
I'm gonna have to Google it.
Okay.
It is Gorko. It is Gorko.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, he was cool. I don't know, just Gorons in general. They're just friendly guys.
Yeah. Yeah. And that would be your favorite. That would be your favorite character outside like the main characters within the franchise.
Oh, like not just Gorons.
No, not just
anyone.
Gorons. Yeah.
Favorite. So like outside of like the Triforce wielders.
Yeah.
I quite like Kings of Hyrule. I quite like King Daphnis. I think he's really cool. I think
Daphnis Johansson is the Wind Waker one, right?
That's Wind Waker. Yeah.
Yep, he's probably
although
really
to be fair, I'm a bit of a King Rome apologist. King Rome did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
A lot of people get on him for how he treated Zelda, but I think that's kind of why he's so interesting. He's like a king who had to struggle between, protecting his kingdom against this threat that was coming, and he knew it was coming, and he didn't really know how to deal with it. And then he puts pressures on his daughter, and it's clear from his diary that he you know, he's quite conflicted about what he has to do and how he has to treat Zelda. But I think that makes him a good character overall.
Yeah.
But I think overall I'd go King Daphnis from Wind Waker. Again, probably slightly for nostalgia reasons, but I think he's probably my favorite companion, the King of Red Lions, and then the ending of Wind Waker is probably the height of Zelda in my book. I think that's probably the peak of the series is the ending of Wind Waker, and obviously Daphnis has a massive part of that. You know, the wish on the Triforce and everything,
creating the new land.
I think exactly. I think I'd go for him. What about you? Favorite non-Triforce wielder?
Okay, so for me it'd be kind of on the same boat. Get it? But you know, in terms of like it's one of Link's partners, and you know, companions, and that would have to be Midna. So I mean,
of course,
she's a Twilight, and I'll be honest, I don't really like the Twilight race because we don't know enough about him. Like outside of Zant and Midna, they're the only defined ones. The rest look like these disgusting blobs that, you know, when you finish the Twilight Realm area, like, and you rescue all of them, they don't look like Nintendo put no effort into them. But the manga definitely shows a lot about them, and actually, if they were like that in the games, then they would be up there as one of my favorite races as well within the series. But Midna easily is my favorite character outside of like the Triforce wielders, because she starts off with like that, you know, desire to just kind of use Link and, you know, just help him because he's in a sticky situation, and actually use her for herself, and then kind of develops that connection with Link, and over time it changes. And I mean, she literally holds so much significance throughout her people and kind, and like she kind of has that same journey of Link of like kind of being lost in nowhere and just having to do her own mission, but she finds that in Link and is able to team up with him. And I don't know, I love Midna in that sense, and it was nice to see her like go away. Also, like the ending of Twilight Princess was so special because, you know, she knew she was never going to see Link again. She had to, you know, destroy the bridge between the realms.
Break the mirror.
Yep. So
I mean, like we said, she makes up for Twilight Princess Zelda being kind of lackluster.
Yep. Even though even though I say she's a Twilight Princess, doesn't Midna literally refer to Zelda as a Twilight Princess? Like that's one of her dialogues. I think so.
Yeah, she does. But I think the name refers to both of them. I think it's like Breath of the Wild refers to a few things, but I think Twilight Princess, she's the Twilight Princess. Yeah. And it says a lot about her, how good she is. That Twilight Princess's story still works great, even with Zelda being kind of not as great in that game as she was in Ocarina, Wind Waker, Skyward Sword. Because Midna kind of pulls so much weight throughout that game. She's just great. She's just kind of sassy, which is just fun.
Yeah, exactly. It's fun to see, because Nintendo does goofy characters really well, so it's nice to see them put personality on characters like that.
Exactly. And yeah, the Twilight in general, and just how Midna works is just really cool and creative. Like, I love the way she hides in your shadow and little things like that. It's just really cool. I can definitely see why you go with Midna.
Yep.
So what got you into Zelda content creation then in the first place? Why did you start making Zelda videos?
So I feel like I kind of mentioned it earlier in the sense of like, you know, replaying Twilight Princess so many times, I thought I wanted to share it. And then from there, my love for the series only got stronger, you know, with making videos on it, actually researching it, you know, playing the game in a way I never played it, you know, trying to make it in a way people can follow and everything. It just really brought my love for the series way more. And yeah, ever since then it's just been a thing. Like, cause I started from high school, I remember, and I remember doing it. Like I wanted to do it so badly, but I didn't have the equipment or the computer or even the space. Like my computer was in the, you know, like living room where everyone was. So I'd have to wait till everyone went to bed, and I'd whisper into the microphone. Like if you watch my earlier videos, I'm like really, really quiet and like just, you know, trying to record. But it was that passion, that drive of like, people are watching me play a game that I love. Like you know, it's just like, it's mind blowing. Well, yeah, nowadays it's very common. It's kind of crazy, especially like when it's new to you and you're kind of getting into that. And yeah, that's essentially what started. And then from there, it just kind of moved on to all types of videos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't really a thing. Like, so what year did you start? When did you start uploading?
So I started because after I came back from Egypt, I was kind of catching up on all the changes that happened in America, because I was in Egypt for like 5 years. So I imagine like a 5-year blackout, especially in like in that time where you're really discovering yourself and like trying to find passions and everything, because it was like during my early teen years. I came back around 14, 15. I started YouTube around like you could say 16-ish. I feel like my first videos weren't until I was like 17 or 18. Like it took me a while to really get things off the ground, because again, living with your parents, and they didn't really have much money, so it's like even a capture card, all of that, and then having 4 brothers that you have to share everything with, it was
Yeah.
It wasn't the easiest, but I wouldn't say I'd say like I really started taking YouTube seriously around like 2012, so a few years before you started, actually. And speaking of which, how did you get into it then? Like what got you into making?
Yeah, so
you started off strong with like lore videos, right? You weren't like just playing a game and casually, like experimenting, right?
Yeah. So it was a couple years after you. So I think it was 2015 when I first uploaded on Zeltic. But it was all Breath of the Wild speculation back then. It was the Zelda Wii U was on the horizon, and there was, because I've always kind of been aware of and been lurking in the Zelda corner of the internet. I used to lurk the forums and stuff.
Yep.
And I was very aware of all the Zelda YouTubers at the time. So obviously there was you. I used to watch your let's plays. People like Peanut Butter Gamer. Then then like Zelda tubers that are still going today, like HMK, Commonwealth Realm.
Yep.
And then others that aren't, like Vortexy Gaming. They're like I watched their content and I really, really looked up to it. And I also really wanted Zelda Wii U. I had kind of opinions on how I wanted the game to be and everything. So I just started uploading speculation content, like, how could this work in Zelda Wii U and things like that. And it wasn't until maybe a year or so in that I started doing content on other Zelda games.
Okay.
And doing a bit more kind of lore and theory stuff. That was a little bit later, but actual YouTubing or whatever I did a little bit before Zelda. I've kind of always made videos on like random things. Like when I was growing up, I played a load of RuneScape, and I made random YouTube videos on that. Anyone who played RuneScape back in the day will remember Tanoob Show on YouTube, and he was basically kind of RuneScape sketch comedy, if that makes sense. Like he'd kind of have a few have his RuneScape character and type a message above his head and use that to make comedy. So I tried doing that when I was a kid. Learned video editing and all that. And then there was a few years where me and 2 of my best friends we started a kind of eating challenge YouTube channel. And they're still up. All the videos are still up. If people can find them, I'm not going to say where to find them, but they are still up. And that started with like, we'd eat hot sauce or chilies or try and drink a pint of lemon
like
juice.
The 2010 era
like
of YouTube. That was like a whole genre of content.
Yeah. Because like we used to watch people like the LA Beast and Furious Pete.
Oh yeah, I still watch LA Beast till this day.
I was always the guy that edited the videos for us when we did kind of food challenge videos.
Yep.
I've always been making YouTube content, and it wasn't until Breath of the Wild was on the horizon that I started doing Zelda stuff. But
that's crazy.
Since then,
that was the game that got you into YouTube. Like in terms of like that's because I remember covering games like Ocarina of Time 3D, Majora's Mask 3D. Those were all before.
Yeah.
Skyward Sword is like when I first got into YouTube. It was like just coming out. It was the new big thing. So yeah, to me that's crazy. For you, it was like a whole cycle after. It was the Breath of the Wild cycle. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And yeah, it's fun to see how now there's kind of other channels coming up that came up with the Tears of the Kingdom cycle, and there'll be other channels that come up with the next game. It is cool to see each Zelda game kind of, pick up new content creators, and there's new people bringing all sorts of crazy talents to Zelda YouTubing. It's just so fun to see how much it grows. Like I was saying, back in the day, I started a few years after you, but there weren't really that many people, especially dedicated Zelda channels. Like I said, Peanut Butter Gamer, people like that, but he was never a dedicated Zelda tuber.
Yeah, like Peanut Butter Gamer, I feel like wasn't even full. He had like Zelda Month, which was like the biggest thing Zelda YouTube related. Yeah. But
he wasn't like a Zelda specific guy. I think you were like the Zelda YouTuber. You were
I feel like myself and I think Zelda Dungeon, like they have a website, but they used to do Zelda walkthroughs all the time, and I felt like that was actually one of my inspirations as well. The Zelda walkthrough guy, like I remember because I want to look into even like before I even started doing my own, I want to see if there's even like an audience or like what I can reflect my kind of content off, and it was literally a guy, he goes by Caleb Simpson. He was like the OG Zelda Dungeon walkthrough guy, and I don't know if he's still still works for Zelda Dungeon, but yeah, I remember that originally is what got me into it. But I was trying to do more of the Let's Play style, so he was very, very professional, and it was just like, walkthroughs and how to do this, how to do that. It was titled, exactly what you did in the video. For me, I was trying to kind of adapt the 100% walkthrough style, but I had also inspiration from like, like Let's Players like Chugga Conroy. And those really got me into like that was like the genre I wanted to get into. It was that kind of Let's Play style of videos, and that's originally what like really got me kind of into the whole YouTube game.
But you were definitely one of the first to kind of not lock your whole channel to Zelda, but
it was
Zelda
the basis. Yeah, I mean, I've done Sonic, I've done other games on the channel, but no, it was my goal and my initial premise when making the channel was I want 100% games and show specifically Zelda and show them how to beat them. So it was oriented in Zelda, and eventually it became just Zelda. But I definitely wasn't fully locked on at first, but I feel like eventually I just, now it's just called like Zelda Tuber. I feel like that was kind of a thing coined later on when there were so many, so we had to like have one roof to address ourselves.
I'm glad that's a name now, like Zelda Tuber, because I remember a few years ago, at least when I started, Zelda Tuber wasn't.
Yeah, it was just PokeTubers. It was like the only thing I knew.
It was PokeTuber, exactly. Yeah. It's great, and I think I have a tweet back from like 2016 or something where I put next year Zelda Tubers will be a bigger thing or something like that. And it was, next year 2017, obviously.
Breath of the Wild broke the ceiling of Zelda and put it into new heights, like all the way to fucking space. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like Zelda didn't have the same reach. It had a huge reach. It was still Nintendo's second biggest franchise, but no, Breath of the Wild has literally put Zelda on a completely different platform, like 100%.
Yeah, because before Breath of the Wild, I love Skyward Sword, but it wasn't this kind of like holy shit game. And I think the Zelda series was kind of running on legacy a bit in that you hadn't really had this kind of genre-defining massive game in years and years and years, and I think you could split the Zelda series into pre-Breath of the Wild and post-Breath of the Wild. It's definitely a kind of a massive moment for the series. And obviously it properly birthed Zelda tubing as a thing. Since then, you've had all these new channels come out, and there's just so many kind of brilliant channels that Breath of the Wild kind of gave the opportunity to rise up. But I know you don't just do Let's Plays anymore. You do a bit more,
critical videos, you could say. I've never been in, because like I love lore and I've done lore videos, but like I've always been on the side of like Nintendo doesn't care enough about the lore, so why should I? Unlike most Zelda tubers, where lore is kind of like, I feel like the main kind of content you'd see when it comes to Zelda videos. But but for me, it's like, since I play the games and I feel like I'm more about the gameplay, but don't get me wrong, the lore is just as important to me. I like to talk about the actual games and how they play and everything, rather than just really, break down everything. But I mean, there's plenty of that, so
yeah. And is that kind of a direction you see yourself continuing with? Or
because
what are your kind of plans for the future?
Having done pretty much every Zelda game as a Let's Play, I've repeated them, as you mentioned, off the podcast, but like you said, you watched my Wind Waker LP, but it wasn't the first one I've done. It was like it was one late. So I keep a redo. I keep redoing them. So eventually that's gonna get stale and I'm gonna burn out from that. So it's like I see myself kind of maybe doing retrospectives, or YouTube is now to the point where Let's Plays don't even have the same audience or reach as they used to when I first started to begin with.
I think streaming's kind of taken a lot away from Let's Players.
Yeah, true. And I do want to stream, but I just see myself kind of redefining the Let's Play content into something like retrospectives or a supercut version or something. So something beyond those lines. But in general, I still have fun just doing topical videos. I can make a video just talking about one bad thing I don't like about the game and just go off on a rant. And that's something I also really enjoy, just kind of that ranting aspect. What about yourself with this whole Tears of the Kingdom cycle pretty much over, and we're going to move on to a next one? What do you see yourself doing in terms of content?
I've never been kind of someone to plan ahead too much. I'm quite an obsessive person, so I hyper focus on what I'm working on at the moment, and then move on to the next thing when the next thing comes around. But I don't really have a plan for going forward from here.
It's just what inspires you, I guess, what you feel like talking about.
Just
in that
what
moment.
inspires. Exactly. So, we've got however many years of Zelda games before Tears of the Kingdom, and there's still so much more I want to say and do with Tears of the Kingdom that I don't kind of see myself running out of things to talk about or whatever. I think I've always had some sort of creative outlet, whatever that is, whether that's drawing or whatever it is, and making Zelda videos kind of fills that role for me. I can it's just the kind of the method of producing something, the process of making the video is what I like the most, and Zelda is kind of a medium to work through. Is really interesting for me. So I think, I'm just going to keep making Zelda things, whatever's interesting me at the moment, wherever my attention is, that's kind of what Zelda content I'll be making. But I don't see myself moving away from Zelda, at least not for, the time being. I think it's still this massive obsession of mine. I still love all of these games, and there's still so much more to be said about them. And I don't know. I'll just kind of see wherever Zelda takes me.
And luckily they haven't dropped the ball. It's not like Zelda eventually got stale over time. It keeps getting better. It's I feel like it's the king of the gaming, all of gaming. Ocarina of Time, I remember had the best consistent reviews. And it was the top, the best. When you thought of a game, it was Ocarina of Time was the best game of all time up until a certain point when obviously now it's older. But then what followed it was, sadly, no other game was able to really amount to Ocarina of Time's success in terms of a Zelda game. But then Breath of the Wild came out, and it became literally the king of video games again. So it's Zelda will always come back with the best of the best. So it's a nice franchise for us to be so obsessed with and kind of make content about, because they don't miss, unlike, a lot of other gaming. Again, I mentioned Sonic, it was good at one point, but it's a very hit or miss now. So
that's the thing. When there's a new Zelda coming out, it's nice to be kind of confident even before you get the game in your hands. It's going to be good.
Yeah.
I mean, there's different Zeldas for different people. Some people like certain Zeldas more than others. Skyward Sword, some people have problems with or whatever. But it's not a bad game. Even if you don't like it, it's still, a very, very well-polished game. And Zelda's, it's a big dog in the gaming industry. Like people watch to see what Zelda's doing. And you see when they do something like Breath of the Wild, people copy it. It becomes kind of a genre in itself.
Yep. They always redefine the genre. With Ocarina of Time, they've done it, and now with Breath of the Wild, they've literally there's the amount of like a good example is like Genshin Impact. It started as a straight up Breath of the Wild clone, and yes, okay, before anyone says this thing, it evolved into its own thing. I get it now. But it started as that, and look at what it's become, and now it's like the biggest mobile game of all time, essentially. So it is crazy,
Yeah, but they'll keep doing that. They'll keep, pushing the boundaries of what they can do, and with Zelda, it's not. You don't feel like it's as corporate as some other games in that. There's not a release every year. It's not, we need to push a game out to sell X amount.
Yep.
You can tell that the team are actually really passionate, and they do, pride themselves on putting something special out. And I think they really do kind of stress themselves to make sure whatever they're doing is the best that they could possibly be doing at the time.
Yep. They want to evolve with each iteration. They're not just like, here is another Zelda game with different coat of paint. It's like, no, we want the next best thing. That's what makes the series so special. 100%. Like even from Breath of the Wild to Tears
I can't
of the
see
Kingdom.
that stopping.
Yeah, exactly. Because like, look what Breath of the Wild did to open world gaming, but look what Tears of the Kingdom did. Well, the game is still more or less Breath of the Wild. There's no game that has a skybox like that has a underground. Like, it's just like, we're gonna take it even further than you can imagine. You thought this was open world?
Yeah.
Check this out. And so it's like Zelda redefines gaming as a whole. Until this day, I don't feel like there's a game that even comes to close the Tears of the Kingdom scale. We look at Elden Ring, and you said I gave it the Breath of Wildification of the Dark Souls series, but it doesn't even amount to anything as what Tears of the Kingdom was able to do.
Yeah, I mean, they aim for different things, but Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, the world of those games is just completely unrivaled. There's nothing
straight up unmatched,
nothing on that scale and openness like at all. And it's created a genre, so I expect to see more games kind of similar to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom going forward.
And speaking of which,
outside of the Zelda series.
Speaking of which, where do you see Nintendo going forward with the next Zelda game? So what do you see after Tears of the Kingdom? We now know pretty much officially that Nintendo's done with this. We're not even going to get DLC for Tears of the Kingdom. So where do you see Nintendo going? Do you see them just still giving us an open world sandbox like that? Or do you see them redefining that even further to something more?
That's the big question, isn't it? They, I mean, no one knows anything.
You can't imagine what goes on
like.
through their heads. Like, we can't even picture what they might be thinking.
Yeah. I mean, they've said in interviews, and I was completely confident before that anyway, that it is going to be open air. It's going to be, 2D games or whatever they could do in the meantime aside, we're talking the next big thing.
Mainline one.
They're going to do the same as Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom and try and have it as open and free as possible. Hopefully we get a whole new world to explore this time. I can't see them going back to that high roll again. Or at least, I don't know. They'd have to. I don't.
They would have to give us like a dark world, kind of like A Link to the Past or A Link Between Worlds. But still, that'd be pushing it. But it wouldn't be enough. Yeah.
Exactly, and they sort of did that with the depths in Tears of the Kingdom as well.
Yeah, but the depths were not that deep, if you know what I'm saying. Like, just, the name didn't really fit. But
but whatever it is, we can be pretty certain that it's going to be following on from Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, and in that design philosophy. I can't even begin to imagine what kind of setting they could be doing. I mean, I'd personally love to see a open air ocean game, like if you imagine the Wind Waker, but with Breath of the Wild's design, modernized, where we can swim underwater, especially because that's something that was missing.
That's the weirdest thing. The one game that's missing it, the one 3D Zelda game outside of the Wind Waker that's missing underwater exploration is Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
Which are meant to be the most open games.
The most restricting when it comes to water.
Exactly. So I'd love to see that kind of thing explored with the freedom of Breath of the Wild.
Wow. Imagine you have Wind Waker's top overworld, but then a universe underneath with underwater travel.
Exactly.
That'd be insane.
Imagine like Wind Waker's sunken Hyrule if there were kind of ruins on the seabed. And you could swim down to shallow ones, but then maybe to get to deeper ones, you had to have different items to survive the pressure or breathe underwater or something like that. I'd love to see something like that, but yeah. What about you? Where do you see Zelda following on from Tears of the Kingdom?
So I agree. It has to be open air. That's now the new version of that's what defines Zelda now. And let's be honest, the new fans that come into the series are going to expect that moving forward. So I'm sure Nintendo's going to follow. Yep. I would like to see them explore outside of Hyrule. I'm sure they can do anything else. Like we've gotten games like even like Link's Awakening, the Oracle games. Like they've explored outside of Hyrule. Majora's Mask, with Termina, and they can be just as creative. We don't need Death Mountain and Zora's Domain. We can have different interpretations of it and different variety. And one thing that kind of gives me hope that they might do that and that they've already thought about it was with Yona, Sidon's fiance and wife.
From another Zora's Domain.
Yeah, another Zora's Domain. I know people might say, well, maybe it's either lost in translation or just like they're not being specific or something, or there might be a domain. Hyrule's bigger than the continent we see. It might be like there's more to it. We just don't explore it. But whatever it is, I hope that is like an idea and we do find more and see something like that. Though, funny how you mentioned the Wind Waker and water traveling and everything. One thing I've been wanting to see before Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom was with how Phantom Hourglass kind of gave us a top-down what's it called, water exploration game, and then Spirit Tracks gave us a full land exploration game. I would love to see an actual open air air specific exploration game where there's actual islands outside of just the Great Sky Island, kind of like what Skyward Sword was trying to do, but fully that like Nintendo actually embraces it. Because let's be real, even with Tears of the Kingdom, the Great Sky Island is very, very beautiful and nice, but everything else, there's just like copy and pasted archipelagos all throughout the map, and they lost. And even the many that there's not enough for how much the sky actually takes in terms of the overworld. Like it's nothing compared to what the depths has to offer or the surface. The surface definitely is the most well developed part of the game, even in Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, by far.
Yeah, so it's like I would love to see where they fully embrace that, where they take what they had in Skyward Sword, but they give us the where there's no loading screen in between land, because that's essentially what my mind thought Tears of the Kingdom was going to give us, but it didn't deliver that. I was literally thinking we're going to find a beat down Skyloft, we're going to find this crazy thing, it's like but we got nothing close.
Imagine.
So imagine that to me would be a really fun thing for them to explore. Or space. Imagine if you could even go you can penetrate the clouds and go even higher.
There is a kind of weird recurring alien theme throughout Zelda. There's obviously there's
literally
aliens in Majora's Mask. There was concept art for an alien invasion
or Link in
Breath
a
of the Wild.
spacesuit, so they've literally thought of it
Link
before.
in a spacesuit. It was one of the kind of crazier theories I saw around the internet before Tears of the Kingdom dropped, was that we'd go higher and higher and higher on the islands until we get to space. Maybe Ganon is on the Blood Moon or something like that.
Again, imagination it will always let you down if you actually believe it too much, because we'll think of the craziest things. But that would be super dope. Imagine if you could find maybe it's beyond what just Hyrule is. Like you could find a planet of the Gorons and it's all rock-like, and you could find a water planet where it's all Zoras and there's barely any land on it, and like you find just full-on actual planets that involve with those worlds. That would be super cool. And definitely I feel like Nintendo could do it really well in terms of like taking it serious. That would be seriously taking it to the next level. We thought the sky was the next level. No, that's like beyond this world. The
thing, you can never really guess where Zelda's gonna go next, and that's something that I could see them doing just because it is so impossible for people to predict. I mean, yeah, we'll see if this podcast's aged well in 8 years time or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's speaking of Zelda in space is probably an easy segue to what's your opinion on fantasy versus technology in Zelda? Obviously, it started out as
pure medieval
very, traditional fantasy game.
Yeah.
Although there was, since almost the very beginning of the series, there's been a lot of ideas for bringing Zelda into the future.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, I think it was A Link to the Past. They really heavily considered having Link jump into the future as well.
Yeah.
So, what's your opinion on sci-fi versus fantasy for Zelda?
So I feel like most fans, I'm sure including yourself, like what really got us into the series was the hardcore fantasy aspect, the medieval, the
100%.
Yeah, like
100%,
swords, shields, horses, all of that. That is what defines the Zelda series. That's something we don't want to see him leave. And granted, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom have that still, but with the sci-fi sense kind of involved, like it's a good sci-fi fantasy merge that really works out. But like, yeah, I don't think I'd want to see Nintendo go further than that. I don't want to see like some, Link in a Gundam or something, or
like cyberpunk Zelda.
Yeah, or that exactly. I think that would be too far away from what the series is, what holds special to the series. So like, Nintendo did though. Don't get me wrong, Nintendo did it really well. They were able to merge the two really, really well with Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, because it's still their type of tech, their sci-fi is beyond this world in the sense of like, most sci-fi fantasy is, but this is like, it has that very magical, whimsical feel that you don't necessarily get with sci-fi. Sci-fi is supposed to seem somewhat practical, right? I feel like, Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, it has that whimsical nature to where it's still fantasy-like, it still has that fairy tale-like feel, it's not completely destroying it. So I feel like if they keep that route, it'd be fine, but deep down, a huge part of me just wants them to go back to, boots on the ground, just steal everything, just going in with, that kind of mindset. 100%. What about you, though?
I'm completely in agreement.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Again, I really liked Breath of the Wild and its approach to technology. Mm-hmm. The way it was, there's a strong theme of like nature versus technology. You had the ancient Sheikah tech and the wilderness creeping in, and but yeah, I think I would much prefer them to steer fully into hard fantasy, no technology, rather than the opposite. I mean, if they did choose to take Zelda into the future, it would be good. I know they'd make a good game, but I think there's something about fantasy that kind of just gets my heart. I don't know. Obviously grew up watching Lord of the Rings and everything, and I just can't really imagine Zelda outside of fantasy. I think it needs to stay rooted to that. Yeah. At least in some way.
Yeah, I don't want to see Link as like a high school, kid going, some Persona thing going on or some weird thing.
And it's not Zelda then. I think it does need to be a guy with a sword and a horse, and it needs to say like that, I think. Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Kind of following that sort of vein. What are your thoughts on like? Because even though Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild introduced a new era of technology and all, what about in terms of like Link as a character? Like now he is the hero in blue. Hyrule is less reliant on those old traditions. The Sheikah are way more prominent. They're something, before they were just a secretive tribe. What's your thoughts? Do you want Link to look like the, old school Peter Pan, little guy with that fantasy feel? Or do you like the Studio Ghibli feel that they're going for now that is just a lot different and kind of in a, it's kind of like a completely different direction, but still reminiscent of the core of the series, so it doesn't lose it, but it does definitely feel different. Like the hero in green is a completely different hero than the hero in blue in that sense, and the vibe you get. Which do you prefer?
I do really like Link's champion tunic design.
I love it too. If you could see me, I think it's pointing at my shirt, by the way.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think especially the champion's leathers. I think his Tears of the Kingdom look is just amazing. He looks so great. And I think it's definitely needed for a game, especially with Breath of the Wild, where they first introduced the champion's tunic. They needed to make a drastic change. It's kind of a statement, isn't it? It
new
shows
age
how
Zelda. It's
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, it's like a soft
Exactly.
reboot.
Breath of the Wild is a new age of Zelda. Yeah. And I do really like it for that reason. And I think they might have said something along the lines of there's so much green grass in Hyrule now that you need a character that's blue rather than green, otherwise it just gets lost.
I wonder if that's deep down their design. That was the reason why they chose that design.
I think it actually was.
Wow. Okay.
But so I do like the Champion's Tunic Link, but yeah, I want to see the green back now. I think because Breath of the Wild was such a special event for the series, and it's going to be the foundation that they move on from. I hoped with Tears of the Kingdom, this is one disappointment that I have with the game, I hoped that it would be Breath of the Wild's foundation, but then with some classic Zelda elements reintroduced. The big one for me being kind of classic dungeons, an item progression rather than just unlocking.
Yeah, no, sadly they doubled down on
the
Breath of the Wild's changes. They only gave
They doubled down. For better or worse, they've really doubled down. But I think if they do for the next game introduce maybe some classic Zelda things, I'd love to see the green tunic come back rather than another blue Link, especially if we're moving away from this Hero of the Wild into another Link. I think it'd be a bit strange if there was an entirely separate Link that also wore blue, because I think that's the Hero of the Wild's thing, because he was he was special because Breath of the Wild was so different. But yeah, what about you? Are you team green or team blue?
I'm kind of caught in the middle. Because I do think I like how Link looks less silly. Because let's be honest, the green hat. The hat. It's very reminiscent of Peter Pan. So I do like how they made him a lot more just modern looking. But no, I do agree, and I think it's just a lot of nostalgia kind of coming through in the sense of that's Link. He's the guy in green. It's goofy looking, but it's like Mario. Mario's an Italian plumber. You know what I'm saying? You can't change that. Yep. He's a dude in red, and he looks super goofy, and it's but it works. So it's if the green Peter Pan look works, yeah, keep it. And I like the idea that you're going with in the sense of that could be the era of the Wild, and they stop there, because it would be weird, to continue the Champion's Tunic. Why would they do that? And already they showed that Link's outfit doesn't matter. You can wear whatever you want. Hell, if anything, the way they show Link in the beginning and end of the game is shirtless now in Tears of the Kingdom. So they don't even care what he's wearing anymore. So, yeah.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, what did you think of? I know your answer. Link's archaic tunic, Tears of the Kingdom design, because that was one of the most heavily promoted Link outfits that we got, and
I'm really sad you can't
upgrade.
Yeah, no, I'm really sad you can't upgrade it, because I thought it was a beautiful marriage between old school Zelda and then this new lore of the Zonai and everything, and it had this Greek mythology.
Bring that bit of green back.
Yeah, and the green, exactly. Yeah, so to me, it was really good. It's just a shame you couldn't upgrade it, and it's literally the most useless set, sadly, within the game. But it definitely looks really cool. And
I thought it'd be a lot more than this game's equivalent of the worn trousers and the clothes you get in the Shrine of Resurrection.
Yeah, sadly, it's literally that. That's all it offers.
It's literally just that. I thought there might be something else to it because of how cool it looks, but it is what it is. So what would you say your most controversial Zelda opinion is?
Okay, I feel like this one, some people may agree with me, but I know a lot of people won't, and I feel because they seem like I'm betraying the foundation, and that is that Tears of the Kingdom, as in my eyes, makes Breath of the Wild feel completely obsolete. It's hard. I don't see myself ever coming back to Breath of the Wild and playing it the way I played it now that Tears of the Kingdom exists. I know Tears of the Kingdom has its flaws as well, but for me, I don't know. There's something about how Link can now dive. Your inventory is way quicker. You don't have to sit and flick through the C stick until you make it to a different part of the menu, or just all of those quality of life changes Tears of the Kingdom did kind of destroyed the prequel, which is Breath of the Wild. And to me, that's a problem, because like we look at Ocarina of Time to Majora's Mask, the games are so much different. Even though it is a direct sequel, it reuses the game's engine, it does all the same things that Tears of the Kingdom did, but it has its own identity, and that's what makes Majora's Mask its own game and Ocarina of Time its own game. And you can come to either of them and not feel like one's missing a certain aspect from the other. But truly, when you play Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, it's just like, why go back to Breath of the Wild when it's so much less and so much more dumbed down? And I don't know. Yeah, for me, it's like, I understand that does upset a lot of people, but I feel like that is pretty controversial.
I can see the comments kind of flashing in front of my eyes, just thinking about that, because I disagree with you on that in a few ways.
Yeah.
I really, so would you say that Tears of the Kingdom invalidates Breath of the Wild's shrines? Because I think Breath of the Wild's shrines are so much better than Tears of the Kingdom.
I agree,
and I think I could see myself replaying Breath of the Wild just to go through the shrines again.
I can agree in the sense of like specifically like stasis, but even stasis is like not that special. Like eventually you get the idea, and I don't feel like it's as utilized. I feel like a majority of the shrines, at least in Breath of the Wild, were heavily on like gyro controls and rotation, and I feel like those don't hold much value to.
There's a few gyro ones, which I would agree with. I agree aren't great, but I think if you take those, I don't know, maybe 15, maybe 20 at a push.
Yeah, might
aside,
be pushing it. Yeah. Okay.
I'd say the rest are better, mainly just because I felt there was a clearer solution to Breath of the Wild shrines. Obviously, you can break them in certain ways or whatever, but Tears of the Kingdom, you can break basically every shrine.
But I feel like that's what makes it special. I mean, like, because it truly is up to the player's creativity, and I feel like that's what Nintendo was initially wanting with Breath of the Wild.
It is, but I think it's kind of too much of that sometimes, where I think sometimes restrictions are good with puzzles, especially because once you work out things like how you can lift something with Ultra Hand and then recall it to create your own platform.
True, that's like you can break way more shrines than it is intended.
Yeah,
that is true.
And it kind of feels like you're cheating, but then you're not. You're using two of the game's main abilities together.
I guess
that.
I guess I agree. I think okay. So I think that my issue is, and maybe because I'm the way I'm recalling it and the way I'm looking at it is like once you solve the puzzle, it's kind of that novelty is gone. Coming back to it, unless it's like you completely forgot about the game, you're gonna immediately pick up on what to do, and it's gonna be really simple. So it makes the shrines almost gimmicky. You know what to do. You go in, you kind of do the thing, and you leave. And I feel like that kind of makes it to where when I look at Breath of the Wild shrines, it's not as important anymore. Because what really makes Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom for me aren't the shrines. It's more so locating the shrines and the open world that it holds.
World itself. Yeah.
So it's like, and that novelty isn't taken away from Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom, if anything, does it better. Yeah, it gives you way too much freedom that you lose the riding on your horse vibe, and you kind of just glide to each
actually
island.
What I was gonna say.
Oh, okay, yeah, because
that
is but here's the thing, that's your choice. You know what I'm saying? If you want to still be on a horse and do it that way, you can. So you can play it in an old school sense. You just have to choose. So I like the idea of freedom, but I do agree the way Breath of the Wild grounds you makes it to where Hyrule feels like truly this massive special place, unlike in Tears of the Kingdom where it's kind of overlooked.
Tears of the Kingdom, you feel more like you're kind of like, I don't know, on God mode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like
traverse the map so easily.
You play Minecraft, right? It's literally going from survival to creative. That's literally that's the transition the games have. Yeah,
that's a great way to describe it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you in some regards, but I think overall, I wouldn't say that it invalidates Breath of the Wild. I think in most ways, Breath of the Wild still holds up as something different.
I mean, I can still see where you're coming from, but that's just wholeheartedly how I feel. But again, I get it. And but again, you're asking for a controversial take. What about you then?
Yeah, I mean, you did well. Okay, this will really annoy people. I need to explain myself why, but okay, I'll say. I don't enjoy playing through Majora's Mask.
What?
Yeah. And I love Majora's Mask, as in I love the world and the characters.
Don't tell me it's the anxiety with time. Is it that? Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I am not good with time management, and ever since I was a kid, that game, I don't know. I know, Song of Double Time makes it easier, things like that. Sorry, Song of Inverted Time makes it easier, but I still I don't like exploring on a clock. I don't like working my way through a dungeon thinking, am I actually gonna make it, or am I gonna run out of time? And it's less of a problem for me now. Now I've played the game, I don't know how many times I've played through Majora's Mask, but now it's not as stressful for me now because I know what to do and I know where to go.
Yeah.
And I don't run out of time now. So I think maybe I should rephrase that. I didn't enjoy Majora's Mask. Now I think it's less stressful for me, but
yeah,
I think the idea of Zelda on a timer isn't something that I love, even though the whole cycle and the way every character has a schedule and the way
that
the
is
3
what
days.
Makes time in my eyes.
That's what makes it so good.
Yeah.
That's what makes it so good. And narratively, it's amazing. It's kind of like Groundhog Day on steroids and or actually, Groundhog Day on like mushrooms or something. It's so weird.
Yep.
And I think there's so many advantages to the time system, and I understand, it is the reason the game is as good as it is in some ways. But yeah, I think I'm a bit scarred from playing it as a kid and not enjoying it because of the clock.
Yep.
And I think that's still kind of a lingering opinion I've got, that Zelda on a timer is just not something I love.
Yeah. I see where you're coming from, but I think mainly because, you get to see everyone's schedule and really it takes Zelda into a real life scenario. It's like they're no longer NPCs, they're actually people with their own lives, living throughout it, and you get to experience it. That to me does it, and it just makes it worth dealing with the anxiety of the moon crashing down. I'll take that if I can live in that world and really feel like what it feels like to be in a Zelda universe. So for me, I would actually want more of that. I wish Nintendo would kind of revisit that idea, maybe not with the impending doom, but where scheduling really matters. I mean, I guess Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom do give us a glimpse of that. It's not
they do have schedules,
because before
it's less.
Go ahead.
Because you're not reliving the same days, so you don't see them
exactly.
You don't interact with them on the same level.
Yeah, but they actually have a day and night cycle, truly, unlike other Zelda games where it's they stand outside during the day, and then when nighttime comes, usually only in the overall time can pass. You go back in, they're in the room, they're done. And So it is really nice having a true day and night cycle. But okay, then with that out of the way, then what about your favorite Zelda side quest? And I feel like this might be similar to mine, or I'm gonna go straight off of what we were talking about earlier with time. So it's gonna be from Majora's Mask.
I know exactly.
Okay.
I know. I think we're talking about the same quest. So I won't say the one I was thinking of. Let's think. What? I'm trying to think what even comes close to.
Which one do you think I'm? Let's
go with the same answer. Anju and Cafe.
Okay, okay, sure.
Is that not what you're thinking, or is
that is what I'm thinking? No, that was spot on.
Yeah,
but that's I feel like every Zelda fan will go there. They're like, the Anju and Cafe side quest. I would say a close second, or one that I'm always torn between, would be Terrytown's side quest. It's funny, they both end in a similar ending with marriage.
In a wedding. Yeah,
exactly. But one doesn't actually go through, or sorta. I mean, really depends on how you interpret Majora's Mask's ending, but easily.
But Terrytown's great.
Terrytown's so good because it feels like the unification of Hyrule, bringing all of the NPCs with Sun at the end of their name together from different races, different backgrounds, building a town, seeing the marriage come through. It's so beautiful. But obviously, back to Anju and Cafe, that is the darkest, deepest, most lore heavy story that you have to, you read their diary, you go through things, so many NPCs are involved in it too. It's just so well thought out, and it really utilizes the 3-day cycle so well. It is just perfect. It's the best side quest Zelda has ever given us.
Exactly. It's why I knew what you were going to say. Like you said, it's if people think best Zelda side quest, you think of that. It's just like you said, the way it uses the 3-day system. sounds a bit hypocritical coming off the back of me bashing the 3-day system.
Yeah.
But it really works, yeah, because you need to be aware of their schedules. You follow Cafe around, and it's just great, and it hits you in the feels.
100%.
It's a very weird story. That an older person kind of reverted into the body of a child, but it's just fantastic overall. And
100%.
What would you say your favorite Zelda theme is? So I guess we'll narrow this down to. Do you want to say the main? No, let's go any Zelda track, any Zelda song. What would you say your favorite is?
Okay, well, for me, I feel like for me, 100%, it would be Midna's Lament. Kind of like with Midna being my favorite character outside of the Triforce Wielders. Her theme is so good, and like when it plays, when she's pretty much on like death's door, and you have to try to bring her back, and like it's just like
except the fact that it gets cut up by the battle music.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, true. That is true. It does ruin.
That sucks.
Yeah, it does ruin the vibe.
But the song itself and that moment in the game,
so special.
And
Twilight Princess had just such a nice vibe that like really encapsulates the vibe you get when playing Twilight Princess. The piano, that melodic theme, just like it's so just depressing and nice. And I'm someone who really likes like not necessarily sad music, but I like the really like deep, dark, gloomy type sounds, and that sound because actually speaking of Majora's Mask earlier, the Song of Healing is up there as well. Like I'm torn between the Song of Healing as well, but I'd say something about Midna's Lament just like holds a very special place in my heart. And with Twilight Princess essentially being my favorite game, it's hard not to choose a track from that game. But what about you?
Yeah. Again, not to be predictable, but I'd go for a Wind Waker one. And I think it'd have to be the Great Sea. I think the ocean, the overworld theme from the Wind Waker is just everything it needed to be. You spend a lot of empty time in the Wind Waker, just sailing between islands where there's not a lot going on.
Yeah, good thing the track bangs.
It says a lot. Exactly, it says a lot about how good the Great Sea theme is. That I've never ever been bored ever sailing around, because the song's just so good. And the way I'm not a musical guy, so I don't know the names of the instruments or any musical theory or whatever, but under the track there's this kind of bobbing sound. So you get the main melody, you get the da 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 da, but then there's kind of a da dum dum da dum under it, which is kind of it feels like the sea. It feels like you're bobbing up and down on a ship. And I mean, there are channels that analyze Zelda music in such detail because so much care goes into making them. And I think the Great Sea is just incredible. It's so heroic, so driving, and
it definitely does.
It's everything you needed an overworld to be.
It does justice to what the overworld theme of other Zelda games were with the Hyrule Field theme. That's essentially the Zelda defining theme. And Wind Waker having it be in the Great Sea, but being able to incorporate its own theme, but be just as iconic, is actually super special to what it is when you really think about it. It definitely holds its own water. If that's not really a pun, but I'm trying to make one.
So, what would you say your least favorite Link design is? Let's get down to it.
Okay, I would say, and this might be biased, because like when I got into the Zelda series, it started with Ocarina of Time, and then I feel like Nintendo had already found their style for Link. It was like the way the green tunic looked kind of didn't really change too much. In Twilight Princess he had the chainmail, and I feel like Skyward Sword kind of evolved that, but to more cartoony look. And then now in Breath of the Wild the green tunic is gone, but like for me there's just something about the Zelda, you could say 1 and 2, like that kind of Link with the ultra long sideburns, and just like you can't really tell, is like he kind of looks like a teenager, but you can't really tell what like his age is supposed to be, and like just his vibe. It's definitely, I'd say, the most reminiscent of Peter Pan. And the further we go away from Peter Pan and kind of go to Link. You know, there's kind of like this, Nintendo slowly evolved it into their own character, their own style. But the closer we are to that inspiration, I feel like the worse Link looks. So I'm just not a huge fan of like that style. Like, and it carries on sadly to even A Link Between Worlds. I'd say Link Between Worlds does it best because it was the modern version of them going back to that style. But I'm just not a fan of that Link design in general to begin with. What about you?
I mean, I completely agree with you on that one. I'd go with kind of OG Links. I don't really love the kind of the tunic and then just bare legs underneath.
Right, yeah,
it
and
looks
that
a bit
too.
odd.
Yep. Too Peter Pan.
You know, real. Yeah, exactly. And I think, yeah, like you said, they've really kind of found hit their stride with Link design in Ocarina of Time, where they stopped making him ugly. They made a deliberate choice to Leonardo DiCaprio-ify him in Ocarina of Time. And I think since then, there hasn't been a bad Link design, I think. I mean, like you said, there's A Link Between Worlds is very retro-inspired. But yeah, I think Link generally always looks good. I think obviously a massive amount of effort goes into designing him for every game.
Yep.
And I think, yes, since they've really hit their stride with what they kind of want Link to look like, I don't think they've missed. So yeah, I don't even hate the older Link designs,
but
I think
same.
Yeah, it's got a weird kind. You know, it's very still finding his feet. And I would say that they're probably my least favorite, are the really early ones. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm with you.
What about your least favorite Zelda design?
Okay. I feel like I don't want to just give the same answer because I do feel like it kind of falls under that belt. They still were trying to find their design style, but if I were to really think about it, I'm not a huge fan of Toon Zelda's design either. Like, you know, like we said before, I really like Tetra and what they went for, but she, like, if you're not goofy, like obviously Toon Zelda's not supposed to be goofy. So if she didn't go with that, you know, quirky, you know, Link is so silly in the Wind Waker, so it's not, you like the design because it's very cute and nice, but what they were doing with Zelda, making her a bit more serious, at least specifically in the Wind Waker, wasn't a fan. I guess you could say Spirit Tracks also carried that design, so and they made her a lot more interesting, so I liked it, you know, just exactly. So it really depends on her personality, but yeah, I guess since I would have to just be generic and say the old school Zelda games because they were still finding their place with their and it didn't really hit the same. Okay, what about Ganondorf? Okay, wait, what would be yours first before I jump into that? You're with me.
Quite a boring answer. I don't like the Four Swords.
So
Zelda.
Okay, but that's like Toon Link, but slightly amplified.
It's different to the Toon Zelda from Wind Waker. But just. I don't really, it just doesn't kind of vibe with me. Yep. But let's move on to Ganondorf.
Yeah, I feel like Ganondorf is more interesting.
The big man himself.
Yeah, that's a lot more interesting. So I feel,
hit me with your favorite and your least favorite Ganondorf.
Okay.
Just design.
Okay.
Nothing else, just design.
Okay. Easily my favorite, and I bet 90% of people will agree at this point. It's Tears of the Kingdom. Like, man is looking swole. He's looking beef. He's looking nice.
He's got that whole like samurai vibe to him.
And he just looks the least like a gremlin type person. Like I feel like in Ocarina of Time, I don't know, there's something about him that just looked. I didn't like the mullet too.
He's a bit goofy. He's a bit goofy. Yeah,
he was looking weird, and the mullet really ruined it. Like I remember, it didn't look like he had one until the final battle, and then you see it like kind of fall down, and it's just like, bro, get a haircut, man. But
because he gets that between the 7 years, isn't it? He has shorter hair at the start, and then by the time you meet him in the castle, what's going on there?
But speaking of worst design, it wouldn't be. I'm okay with that. I would actually say the worst is the Wind Waker. Dude has like a dad bod, you know, he's just looking kind of chunky, big. I understand it's to fit the art style, but it's not menacing. Like Twilight Princess, he looked really old, but it was nice. It looked intimidating. There's something that isn't really that intimidating about the Wind Waker's design. So I'd say easily my least favorite. I just love what they did though with Tears of the Kingdom. What about you though?
Oh, it's great. I think I mean, I love Tears of the Kingdom design. I don't think it tops Twilight Princess Ganondorf for me.
Okay.
I think, his suit of armor is great. His hair's a bit weird. It kind of I don't really know how to describe that hairstyle at all, but I think it just suits him. I think, and his face is so, I don't know, mean and strong. I think Twilight Princess Ganondorf is definitely my favorite.
Yeah, he seemed the most
if
confident.
you're just talking
like it was
appearance.
Yep. And he definitely seemed like the most Ganon-like character. The way he acted, his mannerisms, everything about him was so badass and just
It's just a shame we didn't see more of him throughout the story.
Yep.
Like, he's kind of a twist villain at the end, but
well, we do get that cutscene with the sages sealing him. Like that was badass. So you see his eyes open up in the Triforce glow, and he's like raging, and it's great.
It's great. That whole cutscene is amazing. But I think design-wise, I'd have to go with him. Least favorite, I disagree on the Wind Waker. I wouldn't say
I guess because you have a soft spot
anywhere close,
like he does on his belly.
Well, again, but I think it's not. It doesn't come close to Tears of the Kingdom and Twilight Princess. And I get what you mean about, his shape and his face isn't particularly menacing, but I think he gets so many points for that cloak. What he wears is so great. I think it's so cool. But I think I would have to go Ocarina of Time.
Really?
As my
I thought
favorite.
you would like it because you're such a Smash player. Like I know you love to play Smash, that it would grow on you because that's like his main design in Smash.
I was very excited when we saw Ocarina of Time Ganon was coming back. But yeah, I much prefer Twilight Princess design-wise. Ocarina of Time Ganon gets points for being the OG. But yeah, I think his design definitely improved from there. And I don't think
because it's like
I don't think that.
It's like they tried to make him ugly early on. Like they literally were making him look ugly, and I feel like eventually they're like, now let's just make him look badass. And then Twilight Princess,
Tears of the Kingdom,
he just looked cool. So it wasn't like he was meant to be kind of like that gremlin feel or just that weird. He just didn't look good. But you know what? Actually, I feel like an honorable mention that we need to mention is Hyrule Warriors. I mean, that was like Super Saiyan 3 Ganondorf.
He had the kind of demise-inspired hair. Before Tears of the Kingdom did that. Yeah, he's great. He's so great.
But then that's saying like every design like in Hyrule Warriors was really one of their best designs. Not for Link per se, but like they did such a good job with every Impa. Let's say the best design for Impa was Hyrule Warriors. That's because Koei Tecmo, their thing is to make everyone look sexy. Like that is literally their thing. Like they make a series called Dynasty Warriors, and all of those people were like haggard old people, but they made them look like like these crazy looking people. So it's like, we get it. They're gonna make them look good. That's their thing. So
No, but they're great. Especially Ganondorf is amazing in that game.
100%.
So with a relatively quick-fire round of Zelda opinions and questions done, I think hopefully you'll have a better idea about who me and Luke are and our opinions and thoughts on the various games in this series that we all love. And that was the general idea behind starting a podcast, talking about Zelda, because the two of us we've both been making Zelda videos for years and years now, and there's just so much to say.
Exactly, about time,
these games.
Might as well get on the podcast game and do it this way as well.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think we're finding our feet with this sort of thing, and we'll see where we go from here. But is there anything that you wanted to say to do with ideas for the podcast, or?
We have a lot of ideas in store, and each episode will be focused on different topics. Of course, we thought the first episode would be a great way to just kind of introduce ourselves a bit and give you guys a better understanding of what got us into the franchise and everything. But definitely moving forward, we'll be covering certain topics, and definitely as the Zelda cycle does start and we get new things, it will be fun to cover those as well. hopefully you guys are looking forward to that kind of stuff and just to get to know us better. Obviously, it won't just be myself and Ed throughout every single video. We might look into bringing other people. So if you are interested in that, definitely let us know and who you'd like to see and what you'd like to see us cover as well. I think it would be really fun because it will just be like a part on the internet that you can come and just watch two people ramble about Zelda and just have a good time, because these are our passions. This is like what we love. This is my favorite thing in my life. I'm sure you could say the same, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, easily.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think going forward that we won't do as many kind of random jumping between topics.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll dedicate entire episodes to talking about things in detail, because I know I felt throughout this conversation, I'm sure you did too, that there was topics we touched on that I could have talked about for hours.
Yeah, 100%.
I kind of, had to stop myself and pace myself and shift topic into different things.
Yep.
But yeah, I think in the future it'd be really exciting to kind of break down this series and its massive history. And there's so many games, there's so many secrets, there's so many stories, so many theories, so many terrible opinions like the ones we've voiced today. But yeah, I think that there'll be a lot of fun talking through this series with you.
Yep. Yeah, and hopefully you guys enjoy just finding that place to kind of nerd out with other people about like-minded things when it comes to the series and everything. And it will be all about Zelda. We may dabble with other things, but no, it's Zeldudes. We're dudes talking about Zelda. That's the point of the podcast. And that's something we've noticed even when we would just have conversations just on our own. We would be like, we can just talk about this forever. It'd be fun to kind of do it in a series kind of structure like this. So again, with podcasts being the new thing, the new wave, I mean, we're a bit late to it, but it's still relevant, right? So we thought it'd be fun to kind of do it in this way. But yeah, I guess that pretty much does it for the very first episode. As time goes on, I'm sure it will get a lot better in terms of flow and the way we tackle things. But hopefully you guys enjoyed it for what it is. We got to start somewhere. So I think it was pretty fun. I enjoyed it
absolutely.
a lot.
Yeah, likewise. This podcast is something that we really want you guys to get involved in as well. Mm-hmm. So if you've got any opinions on anything we've discussed today, feel free to leave them down below. Same with any ideas of things you want us to talk about in the future.
Yep.
But yeah, the whole point in this is just a place to talk about Zelda more casually, because we both have our YouTube channels, but obviously that's kind of edited content or what have you. Uh-huh. But yeah, like Luke said, it's one of those things that we're so passionate about that once we start talking about Zelda, it's kind of impossible to stop us talking. So we thought it'd be great to have a place like this where we can just kind of talk unfiltered and at length about this series, because there is just so much to say.
Yep.
So yeah, if there is anything that you want to see from us in the future, please leave it below.
Yep.
And yeah, thank you so much for tuning in to episode 1 of the Zeldudes Podcast.
Yep. Look forward to many more in the future. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Cheers, guys.